This show is copyrighted by VLR Media. All opinions of panelists and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media, the host, or anyone else. This is Battle for Freedom with your host, Watson Prunier.
Hello, and welcome to Battle for Freedom on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I'm Watson Prunier, and I'm glad to have you listening in. Just let you know, you can call the show at 412-567-6879. You know what? The show information can be found also at www.vigilantlibertyradio.us. You can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Battle for Freedom X. That's the number 4. And my website is also battleforfreedom.com. And as we start tonight, this amazing day, I just wanted you to know that I have my island sister, Jessica, on the controls.
Yes, I
Hey,
heard about
hey,
that.
Jess. I call her my island sister. Okay, so here's the backstory because my family is from Haiti and hers is from the Dominican Republic. So
Yep,
we've got some island of Española power going on tonight. So
totally.
you just hang in because this is going to be a spicy night for you. um, it's interesting. So I do want to take some time to give up a quick prayer for the victims of the religion of quote unquote peace in Australia and Pakistan. I think it's really sad. It's quite sad, despite the efforts of the media, the president, and this administration to minimize the terror of Islam. This narrative of a peaceful religion keeps getting drowned out every time they commit these acts of terror. Heavenly Father, I just want to lift up these families that were devastated because of the massacre today and yesterday, of the lives lost because of people who are following a devilish doctrine and are harming the lives of people around this world. So I just want to lift up the survivors to you and also the bereaved, the ones who have lost their children or loved ones. You know, Speaking of narratives, when I'm not on Vigilant Liberty Radio enjoying the blessing of being on this team, I have a gig on Monday nights on Quagmire America with Jason Wade Taylor. We team up every Monday at 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. He has his own show on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. But last night we had Charles C. Johnson on as a guest. This guy is hated by almost everybody in the media because he's exposed a lack of uh, journalistic integrity from the lamestream media, as I love calling them. Liz, I talked about this actually last week as well, looking for journalistic integrity in the media. But we got into the topic of narratives. And the one thing that annoys me is the narrative that's been going on since 2008, 2009, is that the rich white America is out to steal, kill, and destroy Black America. I'm really tired of that narrative. It drives me up the wall. That's among one of the many narratives that drives me up the wall. Also, just the whole idea of the victimhood mentality of what's being sold as a bill of goods with the liberal progressives. But you know, we already know the likes of Sharpton and Jackson will keep up that foolish narrative. The race baiters. They've got to hit at every corner, every nook and cranny where they can basically promote the idea of racism. We know that they're going to be there, as well as getting support from this president, as well as Eric Holder. But then we also have just the regular citizens and also people in Congress who are keeping up this hands up nonsense that we see even now, even happening on liberal white TV, where you have TV shows throwing their hands up, despite the fact that the hands up narrative has been shot down by the evidence. So honestly, every time I see someone putting their hands up now, I'm basically saying I'm assuming that they're just saying hands up, I'm a doofus because I can't read, and I'm pretty much more or less unintelligent because I can't process the information that says that that narrative is shot down. No pun intended. But then you also have the can't breathe nonsense, which continues to exasperate the ignorance of liberal America. And I think of, Miller on the right mics yesterday. We sang a wonderful song, a wonderful melody that Samuel Jackson has out there talking about just this can't breathe and whatever foolishness that's going on right now. But honestly, this is not moving us towards any kind of fruitful discussion on how we can remedy the woes of Black America, let alone Americans in General, you know, I remember after the announcement of the jury in Ferguson, the president gets on the radio to basically talk about how, not the radio, but the TV to basically ask people to just respect the law and abide within the constraints of the law. But we know that he was also encouraging the people to get out there and hold strong, to get out there and quote unquote riot. I mean, well, demonstrate. And we saw how Ferguson just went up in flames. And it's really sad because we saw on TV as Alinsky's rules of destruction were made manifest in the demonstrating slash rioting around the country and specifically Ferguson. And now we have marches around, in every city. We have it here in Indianapolis as well, and even in D.C. And honestly, I don't believe that they're reflective of what I believe King had inspired in his day as he was getting out there and doing the peaceful protests and marching against the injustices that were happening during the civil rights movement. Again, I hate calling it the civil rights movement because I think it's civil rights movement part two. Because again, I'm going to continue to hammer this home. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. I know a lot of people think that, okay, this wasn't the party. The Republican Party is not the same Republican Party that was back then. But still, you can't erase the fact that civil rights were granted to blacks in the 1860s, in the 1870s. You had the Emancipation Proclamation, you had the 13th Amendment, you had the 14th Amendment. You actually had blacks go from being free as slaves to be made citizens to even getting the right to vote. This all happened over 100 years ago, longer than that. Over 150 years ago, this happened. Yet, when you go on to the Democrat website, it basically says that they've had 200 years of civil rights efforts. So that means that they were starting to to address the civil rights issue back in 1810. I would dare to disagree. I mean, I will disagree with that because of the fact that even on their page, their first citing of any kind of civil rights movement was in 1920. So, Jess, I just want to do a quick check if you've got a calculator. And if we subtract 200 years from 2014, does that give us 1920?
I'd have to check, but I think that's not true.
It could be, you know what? It could be a Common Core answer.
Common comment.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, Common Core math would probably get us to that answer. So, you know, it's just annoying just to see how they continue to perpetuate a narrative that is completely fabricated and only made worse by the people who are yelling out that narrative. Again, I just don't think that what they're doing right now is how King would have responded. I think he had completely different tactics. Remember, we have the I Have a Dream speech and countless other information that showed his tactics to be quite different. But what's really funny is I'm sitting here and I'm working on my articles and I'm typing up articles, trying to update my website and thinking about just how King would have done things differently. I have the picture that I had posted on Facebook and on Twitter, basically saying, you guys are making my dream, my amazing dream, a living nightmare. And then I had my buddy Marquise Washington, he tags me in a video this morning, and I want you to play the clip because it's interesting. It talks about this is a clip of Martin Luther King, and it talks about the process of rebuilding for Black America. Jess.
I know all of you are studying hard and you're just doing fine in school, and I'm glad to see you.
In the last 2 months of his life, Dr. King faced the idea that civil rights alone could not solve the problem of poverty.
In Mississippi today. Thank you.
He roamed the South, trying to gain support for Poor People's Campaign. Its goals: full employment, a guaranteed income, and decent housing for every American.
People just don't know, but it's really hard. Not only me, it's so many more in the same shape. I'm not the only one. It's just so many of us right around. It's just don't have shoes, clothes. They're naked and hungry. Part time you have to cook your children pinto beans morning, down, and supper. They don't know what else get a good meal.
You all are really to be admired. And I want you to know that you have my moral support. I'm going to be praying for you. I'm going to be coming back to see you. And we are going to be demanding, when we go to Washington, that something be done, and done immediately, about these conditions. Yes.
This was a different Martin Luther King. Just weeks before his murder, in tones suggestive of the Black Panthers, he began to talk about how the government had broken its promise to the newly freed slaves just after the Civil War.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
That was really interesting. That's completely different than the narrative that we've heard before. From what we hear from Martin Luther King and how, it sounded completely different for me than from what I've heard with the "I Have a Dream" speech. Let's take a stab at what he was saying in here. So the first thing I had to admire what King was saying was, he showed an appreciation for them studying hard and being in school. So right there, we can see, one, he had an appreciation for education. So education was key, and understand that King was a learned man. I believe that he may have gone to a liberal school, a liberal theology school, but still he sought higher education. Also, from what I've heard in the past, is that King was a registered Republican, but we never hear that. We never hear that truth because that would completely go against the narrative of what's being shared out there. And you turn around, and then he says the purpose of him to be down there, traveling in the South, was for better employment or more employment opportunities, guaranteed income, and affordable housing. Now, let's tackle that. He was pursuing opportunities for employment, and if you have a job, that means that you actually have guaranteed income. And then hopefully, and again, affordable housing, where are you planning to move? Where are you planning to live? Because you shouldn't go into an affluent neighborhood expecting them to drop the prices of the home so that you can live there. Again, I know I've said this in the past. Were there problems with segregation? Of course, there were problems with segregation, but the city